Hello and welcome to the DQMBO podcast. My name's Sean. Joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff. Mr. Boff, my man, how are we?
Sean, I'm blown away again by your hospitality, bringing me the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith commemorative cup for my water. So I'm honestly buzzing. I'm happy to be here. I'm drinking out of the glass. Life's good.
This is the fountain of Monty McNair. It's just a Star Wars cup. So I've been a good host, and I've given you the Revenge of the Sith, and I've got the Last Jedi. But
yeah, there definitely is. I'm looking at the two right now. This drinks smoothly, and that's got like a weird kind of weird energy going on. That one.
Been through the dishwasher a few times, but no. Next time I'll bring out. I've got all the sweaty, stupid cups, like a Marvel one, and then like another big Star Wars popcorn one that also doubles as water. And yeah, man. So anyway, pleasantries aside, we're here to discuss the candidacy of Dolph Schayes in the NBA 75. Now, he was included, Dante. Now, should he have been? And if not, who do you put on?
I'll tell you what, Dolph Schayes' career PR 19.1. So that that's some serious numbers there.
Yeah. All right. Well, that bit's tried. Basketball's back, mate. It's a good time to be a basketball fan.
Arguably, it's a great time to be a basketball fan.
These are very enjoyable games. I've had a great week. Just a lot of fun games. Obviously, we've had a couple of buzzer beaters, especially one, an hour and 20 minutes ago against your Phoenix Suns from Harry Barnes, born and raised in the Bay. Black Falcon. It was a pretty pathetic buzzer beater, but
no, what are you talking about? It was a great buzzer beater.
It was just so robotic.
Yeah, but 1.4 seconds and a win in.
Yeah.
I would have taken that were it my team.
Yeah, I like
that. At the very least, it's better than the last buzzer beater against or between the Suns and the Kings, because the last one was Devin Booker, before Devin Booker was Devin Booker. And he was matched up against Matt Barnes on the wing, and Barnes was really into him, and he didn't want to put the ball on the floor.
Yeah.
And he literally dribbled once and then took 10 steps really quickly, shuffled, and then just off balance floater, and it banked in.
So there's 2015, 2016.
Yeah, it's probably 2015 and 2016. I guarantee that friend of the pod or less is the only one who will remember that. But the Harry Barnes one was at least better than that one.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll pay that, because I just don't like watching Phoenix Suns basketball in 2015-16.
Yeah, well, me neither. We can agree on that.
Yeah. The Kings were up 10 points before that buzzer beater. Were you watching it or?
No, I've been out and about, so
must be nice.
Yeah, well, the 1-3 start has not inspired me to the point where I'm locking out bits of my day to watch Suns basketball, but I will watch it later tonight.
So the Kings gave up a 10-point lead moving into it. There's some just great plays by the Suns, and they had the momentum, and yeah, man, Black Falcon. Yeah, he would you say he's the first or second best player to come out of North Carolina?
He'd be in conversation for first. Let's call him that 1.5. Let's him and probably Vince Carter agreed, gentleman's agreement.
Yeah. And then you've got third and fourth with James Worthy and Michael Jordan.
Nah, you got to throw Tyler Hansbrough into the mix as well.
Psycho
T. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into probably the most, the biggest piece of news through the first 4 or so games of the season, which is that Nikola Jokic has suffered a non-serious knee injury. Sick. How many big men have suffered non-serious knee injuries that it turns out it's a meniscus tear? This one coming from Mike Singer of the Denver Post. So he was absolutely mincing in that game. He played 15 minutes and he had 24, 6 and 6 before going down. That is literally
against Rudy Gobert.
Can someone show me? Can someone do the per 36 math for that for me? It'd be 55, 20 and 20 per 36 against the defensive player of the year.
And that must have been why he was so eager to get back out there, because he left, there was a couple of minutes left in the half, and then he came back out just to shoot around before the half and was trying to do some spin moves off the trainer and was really working on his knee. Then the trainer went off to Michael Malone, said some words, and Michael Malone came back and was you're not playing. It's game 4. It doesn't matter. But Yeah, I don't think this is serious at all. And like, there's been like 5 different quotes coming out of Denver saying like, this isn't serious. He's probably going to miss next game just to be precautionary, but like, it's fine. It's game 4. Jokic never misses time ever.
But I'm just nervous because of exactly what I just said, where like it's Porzingis, it's Embiid, it's all of these big dudes, and they're like, don't worry, it's his knee, but it's not serious. And then they either sit out for like ages and ages and ages, or they come back quickly and it turns out that it was actually something serious and they re-aggravate it, and then it's 3 months.
I don't think it is a problem at all, because all those dudes that you mentioned, they've all got injury history, but because of the way Jokic plays and because of just like the fact that he doesn't jump very high when he plays, like it's a set shot, jump shot, it's a stupid fadeaway, and everything's just soft. No injury history, the way he plays,
everything's just soft.
And the way that he got injured.
Talking about his game or his body?
A bit of both, but it's just like the way he got injured. It wasn't bad. It's not like he went out for a dunk, fell down, and it's like, oh, it just buckled. The fact that his leg was there and someone else literally had to knee it, like Rudy Gobert kneed the side of his knee. Nothing of Jokic's gave way. It was an exterior force that did it. Like if he just fell awkwardly, it's like, oh, okay. Victor Oladipo had an awkward fall, and it's just been a series of awkward falls since then. So it's like, I'm not concerned one bit, and I seriously think this will just be one game missed.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be an amazing dodge bullet because this team doesn't really have anything else going for it if he's not on the court. So you can't really see them being in a position to weather even a short absence particularly well.
We will talk about that later when I'm sure our listeners have read the title of this podcast, talking about early season thoughts. We'll get to that in a minute. But just before we move on to those early season thoughts, because there's only one piece of news today, and we'll start it off with you. I just want to say, going back to Rudy Gobert, obviously he's an incredible defensive player and he has his foibles in the playoffs, and we know that he can't defend in space, but he's also custom made to win 60 games a year. If you look at a spectrum of good players to bad players, and in the middle is the rest of the league, and let's say you've got Batum on one end as a bad centre. You might say he's a good player, but in terms of he's a role player, he's not a star. Rudy Gobert can't defend the bad centre who simply sits there and spaces out and passes the ball. But on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the most talented centre in the whole entire league, Nikola Jokic, Jokic, every single time they meet up, it's like he takes it personally and he kicks the shit out of him. Obviously, 15 minutes, 24, 6 and 6, right?
It's pretty insane.
So if you're Gobert and you can't defend just a simple space big in Batum, but then you can't defend the best big, there is a massive gap in the middle of, yes, you kick the shit out of Jared Allen every single time you see him, but like, you can't defend either side of the spectrum.
I think that's unfair, and I think it's reductive because...
It definitely is.
Because I think, he can defend in space. The reason why he looked so bad against the Clippers in the playoff is in part because Batum and Terrence Mann shot like 48% on high volume threes. Like, if that's... You probably go into that series saying if Terrence Mann is going to average 22 points a game, we're okay with losing. He can defend in space just so long as because he's got the ability to recover back towards the rim and still rim protect even if he gets blown by just because of his length and because he is kind of a bit more of an agile dude than I think he gets credit for. It's when he's pulled completely away from the basket and then there's no help behind him. If there's help behind him, like he's ready to, if you can hold Batum or whoever up for like even half a second, he's got enough time to come in and recover. Jokic, on the other hand, I mean that is, I think, to me, is a more kind of like serious question about like what is the true empirical value of Gobert's defense, because matched up against someone who you're directly defending, it's your position, it's another big, you're the best defensive big, he's the best offensive big, let's see how it goes. And for you to lose that matchup every single time, I think that is both an indicator that his defensive performance does deserve scrutiny, but also an indicator that, like, as if we needed another fucking indicator. But Jokic is pretty insane. Jokic is doing Jokic is doing things to everybody, including the best defensive big we've had in the NBA in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and look, I said that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and also planting the seeds for my AD Defensive Player of the Year campaign. So consider the ball rolling, Dante. So do you want to intro this next segment?
Well, before I intro that, I do just have a little announcement to make. This is only the second time that we've done this in the history of this podcast. The first time being circa 18 months ago with the New York Knicks, superstar hunt news. But we are officially putting an embargo on Ben Simmons news until there is something to actually report. Until there is a report that comes out that says Ben Simmons is playing, or Ben Simmons is being traded, or Ben Simmons has done this, we will not be discussing the Ben Simmons saga, because there's just too many little stupid things going on, like little comments in the media. We can't cover it all. So we're putting the embargo until there's actual news to report. With that being said, I will intro the next segment. I'd love to intro the next segment. So we obviously don't have a very big sample size. Most teams have only played 3, 4, or 5 games. So working off of what we got, we're just going to run through some of our early season thoughts. And I will kick us off with my first one, which is LaMelo Good. LaMelo Good. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, nice one. Move on. So my God, they have a laugh here on the Deep NBA podcast.
Oh, you.
Yeah, LaMelo is good. He's taken the leap that some didn't think he was going to take, and it's really, really fun to watch.
I want to see some numbers on him for average time of possession, because he just gets the ball and he moves it. He's either pushing it on the fast break, he's moving it to the next man, he's taking a couple dribbles and then dishing it off, finding open shooters really well. He's not holding the ball very much, but he's still managing to have a really, really impressive impact on the game.
Yeah, look, like I said, it's fun to watch, and we'll talk about my Hornets point, because that's one of my things as well. Talking about the Hornets, it's just they're trying everything to not be good for the next 5 to 10 years, but I just think LaMelo being this good, and LaMelo, this doesn't seem unrepeatable.
Yeah.
Maybe the set shot, maybe he's not going to shoot 45% on the set shot forever, but his makes look good and his makes are wide open.
Yeah.
And it's there's nothing here that is just an aberration. And we've seen in the past, guards used to come in and be really bad in their first couple of years, but lately guards have been coming in being really good right away.
Colin Sexton.
And Luka Doncic made a similar step up in his second year. So if LaMelo can go from just super exciting rookie, he's just putting up numbers, to super exciting really good player who's 21 years old, and winning games for this Hornets team in cool pinstripe jerseys. That's awesome.
The jerseys are cool in pinstripe. I think he needs to prove that he can be a bit more of a well-rounded scorer and not rely on the three, because as you said, he's shooting really, really well. It looks good, but there's probably some reason to think that it's going to, even if he ends up being a really good shooter, he's probably going to shoot 38, 39, 40, not 45. And he's still a bad shooter inside the 3-point line. And he doesn't get to the line, which, as we know, if you're a bad shooter, you can compensate for that by getting free throws, which is why they're called free throws, because they're free. That, by the way, I decided I'm going to coin that Jason Tatum disease. Where you don't get to the line. So he's got to prove that he's not going to develop Jason Tatum disease and really settle into his career as someone who lives and dies by the three. But my overwhelming thought watching him play is how fucking sick would he be on the Warriors. And this is the time where I have something to say, because I know I've been talking for a minute. Everyone knows what we're all about at the Deep NBA podcast. We're about accountability, first and foremost. Accountability for our bad takes. And prior to the draft last year, I remember sitting here being like, Shawnee, there's no way the Warriors should take LaMelo at 2. Because why take him if he's just going to be Steph's backup? You're not going to get value for the number 2 pick if he's just going to be a backup point guard, and you're not going to be able to drum up enough interest in him and trade him away for requisite value. Probably my worst take ever, because he literally he'd be the most fun Warrior. Him, Draymond, and Steph on the court together. Oh my goodness. Oh,
Just
man.
interconnected glue everywhere.
It would
that sounds dirty, but
It would be insane. I'm watching him in these cool pinstripe jerseys, being like, "Damn, you would look so cool and so good in blue and yellow." So my heart really does go out to you with Big Jim yet to make an appearance this season. Another big man with a knee injury. That initially it was like, "Hey, he's got a knee injury," and then like 4 days later, it was like, "Actually, it's torn meniscus." Sick.
Yeah, but look, no comment there because I mean he's. No comment there. I am keeping the receipts as well because I wrote NBA draft grades for SealTrailsandCharge.com right after the draft, and I had a few comments and I had a few people on Twitter being like, "You gave Anthony Edwards and James Wiseman a B, but you gave LaMelo an A+. Why are you just like my reasoning was they didn't draft the best player available, and just had some concerns there because even at the worst case scenario for all these dudes, LaMelo could at least pass the ball, whereas Anthony Edwards could at least shoot the ball inefficiently, and James Wiseman plays a position not of need." And everyone was like, "You're saying this off your own analysis." And I'm not saying that I could see that LaMelo was going to do this. I was just looking at their best and worst case scenarios, and I would much rather have a chance at getting a guy who can be like LaMelo, even if the jump shot didn't come around, and maybe it still won't. Just like, yeah, man, I've got the receipts here of people saying don't just dock the first two teams just for not picking a dude that wasn't your favourite. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah, well, it appears you were right, and it appears I was very wrong. I think that probably is a contender for like my top 10 worst takes on this podcast, because I've had a couple. Certainly have had a couple. But I'm watching him thinking, wow, you'd look amazing playing next to Steph. You look unbelievable with like hit-ahead passes to Andrew Wiggins, or like like coming around a screen and then doing some like hectic shit with the ball and then kicking it out to Steph, who's like coming around a Draymond screen. Oh, it would just be wonderful.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to my thing that I'm enjoying at the moment, and that is LaMelo Ball's teammate, which is Miles Bridges. And I've said some things about the Charlotte Hornets on this podcast, saying that I don't really love where they're headed, because obviously you've got LaMelo Ball, who looks to be possibly the best point guard in the whole entire league in the next decade, right? You've got a dude like that, but who's growing with him? Because alongside him, you've got... let me just get the team up. You've got PJ Washington, Miles Bridges. I'm just looking at the young dudes at the moment. Let me get it on the right season. I don't know how much you like James Bouknight.
Yeah, well, he hasn't played much.
But outside of that, like the rest of this team and the core of this team is Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre Jr., Ishmael Smith, one of the Martin twins, Mason Plumlee. You've got these dudes who, they're not going to be good if still in the league in the next 5 years. So who's this young core growing with LaMelo Ball? And before the season started, I wasn't actually that high on Miles Bridges, and I still might not be after this. But if you've got a guy in Miles Bridges who can put up, 20 to 25 points a night, and you've got a scorer next to your amazing point guard who can pass the ball, that's a solid foundation to build off. And then, if you can find a way, whether it be trade or draft or something, just to get a third piece, maybe you can trade for Miles Turner, someone like that, then it's like, hang on, you've just got a big three to move forwards and all this interconnected dudes with PJ Washington or something going forwards. But I still don't think that if Miles Bridges can be this elite scorer that won him Eastern Conference Player of the Week this past week, if he can be that guy, I'm still a little bit worried about the future of the Hornets, even though LaMelo is so good. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm really skeptical that this will maintain, because he's averaging 26 and 8 on 53 and 40 from the field and the three. He genuinely is a good 3-point shooter. Like he was shooting really well last season, so seeing him shooting well again is not an anomaly. But yeah, I don't think that there's any reason to believe that a dude who averaged 12 points a game last year is going to continue averaging 25 plus. Although, he's playing heaps and heaps of minutes. Like he's, playing 35 plus a game, which is going to put him in the Tom Thibodeau Hall of Fame contention. If he even settles into like a high teens scorer, I think all of a sudden you feel a lot better about this team for the next couple of years, because yes, you probably have to overpay him if you and he's going to restricted free agency this offseason, so you probably have to overpay him if he does settle into like a higher team scorer. But in terms of just locking in a core, like PJ Washington is good, like he's fine. You're happy to have him on the team. If Bridges can be really good, then with LaMelo, Hayward, maybe Book Knight comes good. Maybe whichever of the Martin twins turns out to be like a quality role player.
Well, there's only one left.
Well, yeah, pour one out for the other one. I mean, I don't think they're stacked with young talent, but I think that if he can kind of prove that he could be like a really, really good second or third option, even a really good third option, you feel like this team could make the playoffs in the next 2 years. Like, obviously Hayward's a bit older, so you have to kind of worry about, is he going to start declining? But we both went under on them, over unders, and they're top of the East at the moment. So that's so far so good, I might say.
Yeah, it's something to watch, because if Miles Bridges, if they don't have that second scorer to rise up with LaMelo for the next 10 years, where are they going, and where are they going to find it?
Yeah, but I mean, there's other ways to find it. I mean, you might find someone through the draft. You might be able to trade Hayward's contract for someone, attach another asset. PJ Washington a pick and Hayward's contract for someone good. There's options.
But even look at your Phoenix Suns, where you did that thing where you traded for Chris Paul and he pushed you over the top into obviously title contention, but you had DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and Mikal Bridges, right? That was your core, and then you traded for Chris Paul. If you just add a Chris Paul level player to this team now, it's you've got LaMelo.
Well, I mean, I guess I kind of think Bridges wasn't Bridges. Bridges wasn't a $20 million player when we traded for Paul. Bridges really grew. He took major strides, because he was literally just major strides. He was literally just 3-and-D the previous season without really showing much off the dribble. So he developed with Chris Paul. So I guess the corollary would be say you just hypothetically dropped in Chris Paul or someone like Chris Paul on this team. Maybe he enhances Washington or Book Knight. Bridges is already showing that. Miles Bridges is showing that he's doing it himself. But you'd hope that maybe one of those young players who looks okay could take the next step up. I agree, though, that Suns team did have more young talent than what we're looking at now. But Charlotte have made it pretty obvious that their business model, their organizational structure is predicated on if we're going to be the 6th seed, we're going to be the 6th seed. So they're not worried about what are we going to do when Hayward ages out. They're worried about damn, if we could make the play-in this year, we're gunning for the play-in.
But if they're going to go 6 through 9 seed this year, that's another teens pick, another pick in the teens. That wouldn't be 11 like Book Knight. It would be something 15 through 17, which is hard to.
Yeah, but then we're going to dip our toes back into our Zaire Williams Memphis discussion, where it's what's the value of the 11th pick versus the 15th pick, and I would say that it's not actually that much more valuable.
All right, so move on to your next point.
So this is going to be it's going to be a little run on Warriors content, as we just had a little run on Hornets content. But I just want to do a Swaggy Pool hype train check-in. This is more of I don't really have a point to make. I just want to talk to you about it. The only things that I have to say is that he's averaging 15.3 points per game. Good. On 15.5 shots per game. Bad.
Yeah.
And his shooting numbers are still absolutely diabolical. Although if we were going to spin it positive, he's shooting 40% from the field, which is actually an increase on his career shooting percentage. So my takeaways from watching him a couple of times is that he looks really good, and then he either shoots it or turns it over. And some of his misses are just absolutely insane. I've been messaging in the group chat saying, someone tell this bloke that he's allowed to hit the rim.
Yeah.
Because it's either an air ball or it's a drive into traffic with a crazy, crazy wild shot that just hits the backboard. What's been your impression of watching him through the first 4 games.
You're right. Like, he has some of the worst misses I've ever seen. Like, he does some stuff where it's like, okay, you've done the nice dribble move, like you've gotten the space, but then he just like jacks it and sort of short arms it, and he's like not holding his follow through, he's running back, and it's like that's why his name's Swaggy Pool, because he does that kind of stuff. But yeah, he is whiffing on it. But I honestly just like time, just play it through.
Yeah,
it'll eventually come. And one thing that I'm quite interested in is that he's being tasked. He's immediately getting thrown into the deep end to sustain those non-Steph Curry minutes. And we talked about this in our podcast after opening night, where it's like we've got all these creators in the non-Steph Curry minutes, and I'll talk about the Warriors and their rotations next. But he is like the go-to guy in these non-Steph Curry minutes, and like I'm not sure. Do you reckon I could say non-Steph Curry minutes one more time? I'm not sure if like yes, that's what he should be in theory. But one of the reasons why I liked him so much is that he played so well with Steph, and so being with Steph obviously makes everyone better. But like Jordan Poole was like hitting his normal shots with Steph Curry, but then he was even like hitting some crazy shots just because there was just this inch more space. So like, yes, he is playing with Steph, and I looked up his minutes there, and like in the time that him and Steph are together, they're just a slight net negative through 4 games, nothing to worry about, 4-0 games. But like it's a lot of pressure to say, okay, now that Steph's out, obviously you got Andre Iguodala, who loves a pass, and Draymond Green, like these guys aren't going to create, but it's like this is the scorer on that second unit. I honestly think it will come around, but yeah, it's been a slow start, and he needs to rein in the show-off threes and more just focus on like, all right, get this established base behind you of being a guy that can be this productive, and then you can start like doing the swaggy stuff. But I don't think he will do that. I think he'll keep being swaggy. It's just a matter of whether it goes in or not. Yeah,
well, he's shooting 24% on threes, which is also not good. I think they're positive, I'm obviously looking at it through more impartial eyes than you. Not to say that you're not being impartial, but he looks smooth. It looks good. He's clearly got a good handle. I think, yeah, maybe he just tries to do too much sometimes, and he needs to kind of like take a chill pill. You're in theory, you're a good spot up shooter who can do some damage with, off the 3 dribbles. And you've got a good handle, so you can get inside and hopefully, hopefully his finishing is, it comes along. Instead of taking these like, dribbles 7 times, double step back 3, like you said, like the swaggy ones. Simplify the diet, and then hopefully get those numbers, not the points per game, which is fine. Hopefully get those numbers with the percentage on the end of them jacked up a little bit, because. Yeah, that no one needs despite this team needing someone to anchor those non-Steph minutes in terms of scoring, like no team needs someone who's gonna shoot like high 30s and like high 20s from 3 and from the field. So I'm still optimistic. I think you're right.
Cautiously or just optimistic?
No. I'm throwing caution to the wind. No, I kid. I still think he'll come good, but it's like definitely on my radar that everyone the whole off season has kind of been saying like this is the guy. Most improved player picks, some 6th man of the year picks, and it's a slow start. It is a slow start, but you're right. 4 games, 4 wins, so I can't really criticize too much. 4
games, 4 wins, and 2 of those wins were against the LA teams, which have good perimeter and inside defenders. So yeah, bigger sample size. Assuming the worst for him, his shooting is going to get better. Like if you're the lowest on Jordan Poole ever, he's not going to shoot 20%.
Yeah,
and he's not going to average 3 assists and 4 assists and 3 turnovers.
Yeah,
extremely yucky. But obviously. It's one of the punishments for watching Warriors games. You see a lot of turnovers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, at 12 Don Yang. Do you like hearing the down low on all your NBA and basketball content?
Hey, at Will Conkin on Instagram and Twitter. Don't you mean the lowdown on NBA and basketball content?
No. I mean the down low, because that's our show, The Down Low,
where we give you the lowdown on everything NBA.
Check out The Down Low NBA on all your podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, or even Google Podcasts.
Google has podcasts?
Yeah, I didn't even know that either. But now you know. So go and get it in your ears.
All right, let's move from there to my second thing I'm watching, which is just Steve Kerr's rotation flexibility. And in the past couple of years, obviously the Warriors have had quite the luxury of having very, very, very good players. So Steve Kerr can say, regardless of the matchup, out there you've got the Steph and Draymond minutes, and then the Steph and KD minutes, and then the Clay and Draymond minutes. It's very regimented. You've got, this is your rotation. It rarely changes unless someone will get 2 fouls in the first couple of minutes, and this is who he is. But Steve Kerr this season has done a really good job at playing to the matchup. Now, obviously, that's something that you have to do when you don't have the greatest team of all time. But you've seen a lot of these minutes where we saw the first game against the tall Los Angeles Lakers, where Nemanja Bjelica was playing just out of his mind, and we said on the podcast, and actually it was on our feed on our opening night reactions, like, holy crap, this is another dude who can create with Steph Curry off the court. He's just everything you've ever wanted for a Warriors player, just some tall European big. Draymond Green's just like loving it. But then the next game he didn't play against Clippers. Like he barely touched the court. And then against Sacramento, I think he might have even got a DNP CD. And then against OKC, he touched the court a bit more. And it's like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? And then you look at it, and then in all the games he didn't play, it was a heavy, heavy dose of Juan Toscano Anderson. And it's like, oh, okay, that is 2 completely opposite backup bigs, but you probably need someone like JTA in the non-Ivica Zubac minutes, but then also going against like DeAndre Jordan, you're probably going to want someone like Belly. And I just really like his flexibility there. I talked about it a bit before, where you've got Jordan Poole anchoring a lot of these what are they called, backup units, but in the backup units where you don't have Belly, you sort of do need another ball handler, because Belly was one of those pressure valves and those pressure releases. And it's just like, it's so nice, because you would watch Warriors games. I would always have fun watching Warriors games, but you would go in and it would just be like precision. This is how you beat a team. This is how they win. They know what they're doing. But now it's like, oh, okay, we've got to play to the matchup. Maybe Otto Porter Jr. is going to close the game. Maybe Belly's going to close the game. Maybe this is going to happen. Maybe this is going to happen. And it's very much like the joy of just coaching night to night, and it's just fun to watch Warriors games again. And I'm saying that simply for someone who lived through the off season, not anything to do with the past couple of years.
Dare I say it? It's very Spursy. It's very Popovich-esque from Steve Kerr, just like having a couple of different looks in your arsenal and saying, like, I'm going to completely unleash in this instance, and against this team, I'm going to, you're back on the shelf, Belly.
Do you want to know what they call it?
Tell me.
Strength in numbers.
Strength in numbers. Wow. Birds everywhere say hell yes.
What?
Well, birds flying flocks. I mean, actual birds, like of the,
winged.
Of the winged variety. And I think it's very, very Popovich-esque, and obviously, Steve Kerr has a very close relationship with Popovich, player-coach relationship. Was he an assistant there? No, maybe. Possibly. Anyway, they're mates. They get on like a house on fire. I think it is. It's a luxury that probably only a few teams have. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking that the Spurs do have that at the moment. Memphis also has that, where you have a whole bunch of different backups who play the same position but can give you completely different looks. If you do want JTA to come in and give you kind of some Draymond light stuff, but if you want Belly to come in and give you all of that, smart, cerebral, dare I say, big stuff, then you've got the options. So it's both a sign of really good coaching to recognize that you have the options, but also it's good that those players, which 2 seasons ago were looking at them like who on here is actually good, that now they're in a healthier ecosystem with stars at the top, they're able to kind of fulfill their roles more effectively.
Yeah, they're tools in Steve Kerr's tool belt.
Yeah,
whereas before it's like, have we got something for your 5 minutes? Go out there and work.
Yeah, well, exactly. Before they were the belt. Now Steph Curry's back.
Yeah, it's and I kind of forgot my point there. So let's move on to the next one.
The depth, the deep two. God, that's a mouthful.
Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the four-man weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the pack of basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Well, I want to talk a bit about the Wolves, who at the time of recording are the number 2.
I remembered my point. I'm excited to see how Big Jim and Kuminga fit into this tool belt.
Yeah.
All right, go on to the Wolves.
I don't want to be a David Downer, but I'm kind of not excited because I don't think it's going to be very good.
You will watch Kuminga's first game. You will be like, what's he gonna? Is he gonna shoot 50 jump shots? Was that lightning?
I think it was lightning. Well, we better get inside, Sean.
A storm's coming,
We better get inside. My goodness. Should we take shelter under that tree? Whoa, that was some actual thunder.
Whoa.
That was.
If you guys can hear that on the pod, shoot us to hit it. Look at the bomb, man.
Oh my goodness.
We got to finish this before we just get
absolutely torrential. I'm going out tonight, so I should bring a fucking jacket.
Yeah, like a non-metal jacket. Is metal conductive? Wear a rubber jacket.
Yeah.
A dinger.
I probably wouldn't wear a rubber jacket. I probably wouldn't wear a rubber or a metal jacket anyway, but
yeah, no.
Thanks for looking out for me.
Where are you going?
I'm going to a bar in Brunswick. I won't dox myself.
Dante Buffer, he lives at
No, I'm going to a bar in Brunswick East. So anyway, I'll see everyone there.
When this comes out, by the time you're home.
Yeah, true.
So what have you been keeping an eye on?
I want to keep an eye on the Wolves because at the time of recording, they're the number 2 defense in the league, which is somewhat surprising. And I'm checking the scores. I'm ducking in, watch a quarter here, quarter there, and it's just like, blokes in that team love coming up with like 30 plus points. Like Russell had 35 today. I think Anthony Edwards has gone over 30 a couple of times. Cat is averaging like a cool 25 and 11 on
Doing
50
cat things.
On 50, 40 and presumably close to 90. Everyone around the league says that Chris Finch is a really good coach. He's had a full off season to like kind of work with these guys. Edwards is still not really shooting particularly well, but it's pretty clear that he's a talented player. Pretty clear that there's something to work with.
Yeah.
And at the time of recording, they're also 3-1. So obviously it's a 4-game sample size. And we're wary of who teams have played. We don't want to we don't want to do what Bleacher Report has done and just absolutely jump on the 4-0 Bulls bandwagon, even though they beat Detroit without Cade Cunningham twice and two other terrible teams.
You know, the last time the Bulls were 4-0, it was the Last Dance.
Yeah, well, we don't want to do that because the wins. The wins for the Timberwolves, one of them was against the Rockets. One of them was against the Pelicans. They also lost against the Pelicans.
With no Zion.
And then with no Zion. And then they did beat the Bucks today, despite Giannis going for 40. So that's, a pretty impressive performance. But today the Stars stat lines were 25 points for Kat, 29 for Russell, and 25, not as much as I thought, but 25 for Edwards. You got 3 dudes who can put up mid-20s together on any given night. Like that, you're going to be in contention for some games no matter what. And I would be really interested to see whether they force themselves into that like play-in conversation, because when we did our over-unders a few weeks ago, and I kind of conceptualized like a group of maybe 4 or 5 teams that's going to be competing for the last for 8, 9, and 10 basically, and only some of them can get in. And I didn't include the Timberwolves, but I'd be interested to see if they can not only force their way into that, but over the next 10 games also, like where the dominoes fall. Like, are they firmly in the playoff race? Like, are they better than the Spurs? Sorry, I should say play-in race. So I just want to keep my eye on it, because when you have three three dudes who can score in bunches. If they start scoring in bunches, and any of the defensive improvement is for real, then you might have to start thinking about something seriously.
Yeah, I'm just extremely cautious because the last time the Minnesota Timberwolves had three players average over 20 points, it was Levine, Wiggins, and Cat, and everyone's like, "Well, this young core, they can score in a bunch."
Yeah, that is a very good point.
And like everyone was like, "You've got something to work with here." They all average 20 points, and it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know, man. Like Anthony Edwards, like Bleacher Report, you're correct. He is deep in his bag. Fries at the bottom, etc. 25 points, 9 of 24. -2 in a 5-point win.
Yeah, he definitely is not, I think he's shooting like 41% on the season, so he's definitely not setting the world on fire from an efficiency standpoint. But he does, there's something there.
Je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi. You just feel like if he could ever get to 45% from the field, you'd be like, oh, he's going to be an all-star.
Yeah.
You might just have to live with the fact that he's never going to hit 50, 40, 90. Or even 47, 47, 37, 85.
Yeah.
You might just have to live with that because he does put so much pressure on the opposing defense with his scoring ability, but also his athleticism and slashing ability, which for a team with shooters around like say a Cat Edwards pick and roll, if they unleash him a little bit more in the pick and roll, that's like something foundational that you can build around. Those, they're three guys playing well is probably, vitally important to them because they're not particularly deep. So if one of them gets hurt or, Russell really struggles to start the season, then everything that I'm saying could be moot, and I'm definitely not predicting that they will force their way into that playing conversation, but they've been pleasantly surprising through 4 games, and I will find myself tuning in a little bit more.
In terms of roster construction, you've got those 3 dudes who are quite defensively inept, but they can all score 20 points on any given night, and if you want to win with those 3 guys, getting like Jared Vanderbilt, Jaden McDaniels, Pat Beverly, Taurean Prince, Naz Reid, they are like the
and the other thing as well is that Cat can be a good defensive player because in college and maybe his first year or 2 in the league, he was actually a really good defensive player.
Yeah. I'm sure I'm not
saying...
So
if Chris Finch is... to be clear, he's been fucking terrible for 3 years defensively. If Chris Finch can get that out of him, then you're looking at those guys you just mentioned, but you're also looking at maybe someone who can anchor the D as well, and then you start to get into the territory of they could be a really good D because all of the dudes you mentioned, great perimeter defenders, really pesky, but if the 5 is terrible, there's going to be trouble.
I like the roster construction if it all goes right, but then again, is Pat Beverly going to go right? Is Naz Reid going to go right? It's like, the theory's right. Let's just see it happen.
Naz Reid, shockingly young. I just always assumed that he's 28 and he's 22.
Yeah, but then on the other side, Chris Boucher, you always think he's 22, but he's 29.
Yeah, no, I always knew Chris Boucher was old because I kind of followed his.
You were watching those Santa Cruz Warriors games, huh?
Well, I was watching his highlights on the G League Instagram account. But yeah, whack that Naz Reid is 22. Dude, seriously looks like he's 28, and he's one of
Nazi
these.
Muhammad, bro.
He does. He looks like he's one of these inspirational story guys. That's man, he grinded in Latvia and Spain for 5 years.
He plays like one as well.
And and then he came back and did a season, he's the 6th man for a G League team, and then he got an invitation to try out, and he was like, I'm never gonna let this opportunity get past me. He looks like someone who fucking Bleacher Report Instagram could have a field day with. But instead he's actually just a normal guy.
It's like Jonathan Simmons, he spent $200 to get into the Spurs.
It's exactly, he looks like someone with Jonathan Simmons' backstory. He 100%, that is the perfect comparison.
Alright, so moving on to...
We've been Simmons fished.
Moving on to... We can't say that name on the pod until something happens. Moving on to my third and final point. It's Denver Nuggets. Shock and awe. I'm speaking about my second favourite team.
Oh.
Lack of bench production and how to fix it. Now, you can find my article on nuglove.com on correctly titled How to Fix the Denver Nuggets Bench Issue, and other people have been writing about it, and a couple of the Nuglove writers like Dennis Smith on Twitter was like, hey, can we start criticising Michael Malone because he always gets away scot-free, because it's always like, he calls Pop whenever he's lonely in bed, and like there's all these puff pieces all around him where it's like, man, he was fired from Sacramento and he thought it was it. He's getting the Jonathan Simmons treatment. Yeah. But at some point it's like, he's been playing these lineups for 4 games now, 4 games now, where it's like you've got, obviously Jamal Murray's injured, so you have to bring up Monty Morris from the bench unit, and Monty Morris is such a stable hand as the point guard and just gets everyone in line. But that's the thing with injuries, you may have a great backup, but then what happens to his backup? Now there's a lot of Facundo Campazzo, who is making a brilliant case to be back in Argentina a year from now.
That's so rude.
But what Michael Malone's doing is he's doing, it's not hockey subs, but he'll play out the game. The starters will finish their minutes, so Jokic will stay in longer than everyone else, blah. Simple rotation, but then he's just playing these minutes with just 5 bench player lineups. So on the season, the starters together have played 88 minutes, and this is the starters with Monty Morris instead of Jamal Murray, and the starters are a plus 9.1, and like obviously the starters are amazing. We know this team works, like even if you just sub it, like Monty Morris has never missed a shot in his whole entire life, I believe, right? Especially because he had finally a good game in his 4th game.
He's suffering from Sean Livingston disease.
But the second most used lineup, which is like heads and shoulders above the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th, is 28 minutes, half an hour to this just pure bench lineup with Campazzo, PJ Dozier, the 2 Greens, and Austin Rivers. And I love all of those dudes in a vacuum, and I love all of them interchanging with the starters. Like if you're going to stagger them, these are just perfect glue dudes. In half an hour, they are negative 53.4. They've been outscored by opponents, and this isn't per 100. This is literally just their net over half an hour of playing together. And like you're seeing this when you've got these bad teams with one star like Jokic. Like I'm not saying that this is a bad team, but
wait, you're saying Aaron Gordon's not a star?
Yeah, but like Aaron Gordon's playing well above his head, and that's part of why the starters are winning. But like as soon as like any of these dudes sit, and like MPJ isn't having his greatest season either, it's just they just give up all these leads they amass, and it's like you clearly need to stagger your starters.
He must
and your
be,
scorers.
in addition to calling Pop when he's in bed lonely, he must also be calling Scott Brooks and saying, Scott, how should I deal with this? And Scott saying, just play a bench unit every time.
And you've got all these dudes in the starting lineup: Jokic, Murray, pretty much everyone but Gordon. Like you've got Will Button there and MPJ. These are the perfect dudes to be the go-to guy on a second unit. Like all 4 of those dudes, you put them on the second unit, maybe not Monty Morris. You're just like, all right, we're running everything through MPJ for the next 2 minutes. We're running everything through Will Barton for the next 2 minutes. Will Barton does that without anyone even asking him, right?
He does it when Jokic's on the court.
And why are you just playing these all bench units? And they're not working. And like you watch it and it's like, okay, JaMychal Green probably should have hit that 3. That was a good look. And it's like Jeff Green, pump fakes, get 2 free throws. It's like, that's your whole production, man.
Yeah, is the easy solution, assuming that Jokic is healthy, not just to say that MPJ, anchors the scoring on the bench unit, and you just say to MPJ, you're the number 1 option, go and score 8 points in this quarter, go and keep us afloat. Is that not the obvious?
It's so obvious, and it's right there. MPJ has actually had a really slow start to the year. He's averaging 11.5 points per game on 34% from the floor. But obviously that's going to come around. Like even if, as I said before, even if you're the lowest, he's not going to average 11 points. But the fix is right there. And I've got some trade candidates here. It's like, can you bring in a guy who can create off the bench? But as soon as you start trading for people in this season for the Nuggets, it's like, okay, well, your goal is to win next year when Jamal's healthy.
Well, you'd have to be trading for the right contract.
Yeah, and it's like
someone who's locked up through next year as well, rather than someone who's on an expiring.
And there's not many easy fix scoring guys that can come in and do that are going to be. Well, you're not going to have to move a serious piece of puzzle.
Well, and then you've got to think as well how that guard's going to mix with Murray back potentially at the end of the season or for next season. Whoa, thunderstorm!
It's an easy fix. Just stagger these lineups.
At least try something different.
Yeah.
If it's obviously not work, because what the math on minus 53 in half an hour is minus 2 points per minute, which is literally it's the same as if you never scored and they scored every time. That's just about as bad as you can possibly get. They're getting 2 every time down and you're not hitting any shots. That's the math on that. So maybe whatever, MPJ, maybe he's not the solution. Maybe like you don't trust Aaron Gordon to like play with those guys and be like the number one scoring option. Whatever it is, try something different. Try something different. You can't be worse than what it is. I think yeah, it's a very good point that Michael Malone should, kind of maybe cop a little bit of.
I'm not saying fire the coach. I'm just saying
that would be very Sacramento Kings.
I'm just saying do something.
Yeah.
Because the Denver Nuggets can win games and they can be a solid playoff team and probably just scare someone in the playoffs. Obviously, focusing on winning next year. Just don't blow it. And it's not like there's no pressure on this year because we're just waiting. Still got to win games and make smart
and
decisions.
that's the actual coaching element of coaching as well. So you have to be involved in tinkering around the edges and finding what works and what doesn't. So
I'm working on an article at the moment for Nuglove on the potential of a Kobe White trade to Denver.
Wow.
Not that I think it would work or should happen.
That's so love, bro.
But as a guy who would be cheap, you would be able to trade for him, without giving up one of your starters. And just as a dude who can come in the second unit and just maybe create something.
What do you trade?
Facundo, Campazzo, and Celery.
Why would they do that? Surely they could get someone better out of it.
Surely they can.
What about you trade JaMychal Green for him?
Yeah. It's very very let's not believe the words I'm putting on the page. But just think about Kobe White getting traded anywhere like that, where it's just you've given up. And there was a report from Michael Scott of Hoops Hype that said that some of the Bulls they don't really have any ties to him because obviously they didn't draft him and he hasn't been starting and they've brought in dudes ahead of him. So it's
and his role is the role of scoring guard is ably filled by all of the other guards on the team.
So it might be time for a change in scenario for your Tar Heel.
Yeah, well, he's not really my Tar Heel. I'm a hands-off parent with him. But yeah, he's their fifth guard, so he's super, super expendable. Especially considering that they were very active, obviously bringing in players at the guard spot, so they're obviously going to prioritize playing Caruso, Ball, and DeMar DeRozan. So yeah, I think he will definitely be on the move.
But we'll talk about that in about 15 podcasts from now.
Yeah, 15. I mean
7.
Yeah, probably.
How many weeks in the NBA? 15 weeks.
Heaps of weeks.
Let's just check Yahoo. Well, that's our pod for today. Was there anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, just that was wonderful, and I'm very happy that basketball's back. It is a great time to be a basketball fan because we actually have basketball that matters. I didn't really engage with the preseason because I was like, I will watch it when it counts. So here's hoping that the Suns win a game. And it's been wonderful chatting to you, as always.
On that point, even though you've got your intonation at the end, it's 23 weeks in the NBA season, but yeah, watching preseason, I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm just not really into it. It
sucks. It
does suck, but I'm just thinking should I be into this? And then as soon as opening night happens, I'm 100% engrossed.
Yeah. Well, I watched probably 20 minutes of preseason.
I'm probably around about the same time.
Because there's plenty of time to assess where teams and players are at in the first 10 games of the season.
Exactly. Actually, one final thing on that Denver Nuggets point. Bones Highland, it might be time to give him a go because
break him out of his glass container.
He scored 5 points in his debut game, but spot minutes that were just completely irrelevant. So maybe Austin Rivers, you're not that guy.
Yeah, maybe Austin Rivers was never that guy.
Austin Rivers, on one of those only bench units, found Isaac Okoro on him on a switch, the Cavs' best perimeter defender, and I was like, yep, I'm going to pump fake, drive base, pump fake, get blocked. Oh, okay, but I got the rebound. I'm going to do the exact same thing.
If you first don't succeed, Pump again.
Yeah, well, Austin Rivers had a quote before the start of the year saying this is his final chance to stick in the league, and plays like that don't really help.
Damn, it's a bit depressing that he's kind of like...
Well, he was just waived
Yeah.
after getting traded, and it's like the only reason Denver got him is because they needed a guard.
someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to him.
Best of luck to him.
Dear Austin, best of luck from the Deep to NBA podcast.
Still waiting on a Sexton DM, but that's okay.
A young bull.
Well, Dante, I will talk to you next week. If you look for PointsBet's stock exchange listing, you'll find a bucket of jargon and doublespeak as they're considered a, quote, wagering services operator, unquote. That's a corporate stretch for the colloquial friendly brogan or, hey, look, it's Chris Bosh kind of image they're sending off with their targeted advertising. I don't know about you, but take me back to the days when former pro sports players signed brand deals with hair loss clinics or Fujitsu aircons, not, quote, wagering service providers.
If you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you come across the two of our faces morphed into one, would that make you listen to our podcast more? I mean, if it does, let us know and we'll start doing it. But when I see a few NBA players' faces morphed into one, it doesn't make me want to pull out my wallet and donate some money to my local wagering services provider.
The worst part is we're coming to accept it. Wagering service provider ads are so ingrained in our sports, and the way sports is delivered to us, it's almost impossible to avoid. 3/4 of Australian children aged between 8 and 16 years who watch sport think that betting on sport is normal and can name one or more sport betting companies. When I was in school, I was struggling to remember Pokemon names, and I'd be furious if I knew that brain power was being used to put towards wagering service providers and not them.
The wagering service providers know exactly who to target. It's not okay to let them ingrain themselves in young Australians' minds. It's not okay to target people in the middle of a pandemic, and it's not okay for gambling companies to wield so much influence in the world of sports. To help kick gambling out of sport, use your voice and sign the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/petition.